I'm so grateful to be here today. I'm all the way from Brighton, England. Brighton's on the coast, like the seaside coast. Really, well, it's a lovely, accepting, kind of different kind of place. You know, very LGBT and very much, well, it's just very accepting place, really. And basically, yeah, I did do this advertisement for basically people who are autistic and they're on a train and they're trying to, you know, cope with all the sensitive, you know, complications, you know. So you have your routes, you know where you're going to go, but then if something happens, you know, if the train diverts, so it's called diverted, or if your train cancels, then you get all, you know, you start to, you freak out, basically. And yeah, and I'd love to play it for you now, so Kevin.
I'm autistic, and the fear of unexpected changes can make leaving the house impossible.
Okay, stop the video. Yeah, so that is basically, I don't know if everybody else feels that, but it's the same kind of symptoms of the frustration on the train, and that was the National Autistic Society from London, and I'm wearing the pendant right now. You can look it up online, it's a really helpful website. And yeah, so basically it's all those feelings of the lights, the noises. It took me a long time to actually be able to do that. When I was very young, I wouldn't even leave my house. I mean, the funniest part was when I actually went into a town for the first time, my mum would actually spy on me in the background and actually follow me, and I'd turn around and I'd be like, is that my mum? And my sister would go, no, it's not your mum, just looks like your mum. Just keep carrying on. It's like, no, but it's mum, it's not mum, okay? I knew it was mum. So, yeah, being born actually in London, Enfield, London, my parents noticed something quite odd about me. When I was a baby, my older sister, she was obviously starting to speak, she could understand things, nothing was too sensitive for her, but whereas me, I was screaming all the time, like literally screaming. I wouldn't form any kind of language. And everything around me frightened me or it would frustrate me. So, unlike my sister, I was pretty much most of the time, I just couldn't do most things like other kids. I spent most of my time trying to understand, and when I couldn't understand something, I would get so angry and frustrated that my behaviour got worse and worse. I would have fits, I would have panic attacks. I would even scratch at myself, and apparently I used to bite people when I was a kid. I don't do that anymore, so careful. But soon, since I wasn't speaking, if it wasn't screaming, it would either be a language that nobody could pick up on. And for the longest time, until I was about 7 or 6 years old, that was when I was actually able to talk. So it took me a long time, and I actually got sent to a special school. So we moved from London because my family thought it would be too much. You know, the environment was a little bit too hostile for bringing up a child like me. So we moved up north, up to Norfolk, which was a beautiful environment. Lots of landscapes, forests, and just we had a beautiful garden, a garden that I could escape into and just be myself. Because trying to, do public transport or trying to be in school or talking to people would just be so hard for me that I would just shut down. I wouldn't want to do anything but play in the garden or go into my own imagination. So in a way, my mum even quotes it, she even goes, "Oh, I'm in my own world, my own little wonderland," kind of like Alice in Wonderland. So I'd always escape into the rabbit hole and just go into my own little world. But so in order to help me, my mum and dad thought it'd be a good idea for me to go and see doctors, psychiatrists, and even by the council, an educational psychiatrist. So people who were at that time, back in the early 2000s and late 90s, were really trying to figure out what autism was and separating it all out. First, they noticed that my actual processing, so the way that I was looking at things, would be very slow. So say I would be 4 years old at the time that they were testing me, but I had the capacity of a 2 or 3-year-old. So my brain was pretty far behind. And it was the same thing with my speech. I was very far behind in that. And whatever I tried to say just wouldn't make any sense. I mean, when the doctor would go, "So what's that?" And I'd go, "Cat." "What's a cat?" "Oh, what is a cat?" And then I go, "Oh, letter box." And the doctor's like, "Oh, okay. A cat is a letterbox." So everything it just didn't make sense. And they noticed that basically it eventually got to the diagnosis of having a processing disorder and a speech disorder and Asperger's syndrome. So, and also, which was it was a conflicting thing having that, but then they started to notice that since I couldn't understand anything, all I could do was just react in a negative way. All I could do was scream and shout and throw things and have my own fits and tantrums. But what I did notice was that if I wasn't doing that, I would love to watch TV. I'd love to look in colouring books and do art and even sing at times. And I spent obsessively over copying characters on the TV. So I wouldn't have a normal conversation with you when I was little. I would copy, say, from Looney Tunes. I would copy Bugs Bunny and respond to you like Bugs Bunny. I'm not even kidding you. Even Tasmanian Devil or Ducky, like Ducky and everything like that. And the kids and people at school would go, "Okay, all right." So that was a bit of an issue. So I started talking, but it made sense, but it was copying off of characters off of the TV, and that was the only way I could communicate to people. It actually helped me talk, because I found comfort in that. I saw creativity in it. The thing is though, with things like numbers, maths, science, I couldn't see it in the same way. And I'm positive that I have dyscalculia as well, so I cannot process numbers properly. I'm 22 now, and I really cannot do division, so please don't come up to me and give me maths questions. So I won't like that. But since I couldn't process that, at least I gained something from looking at creativity. And other than trying to escape from socializing, I noticed that I was starting to actually get good at creativity, doing art, doing singing, dancing, mimicking, acting. So I would try and find a way to do it in school. But while I was in school, teachers just assumed I was badly behaved, because a lot of the time the boys who had autism were actually given special help, but when you're a girl, I noticed that I wasn't really getting as much help. I was just seen as a bad person, and for a long time it really made me feel bad about myself. But possibly the gender between autism, it's different. So when you're a man with autism, it's kind of different between when you're a woman. And I started to notice that. I've got some friends that have autism through the different genders. And it kind of made sense after a time. So through school, it was a bit of a bullying hazard. I've actually moved school about 9 times in my life. So I went from, you name it, girls' schools, public schools, private schools. The girls' school was the worst one. I hate girls' schools. Because they were very posh and prim, and you needed to act like a lady, and I was not like a lady. I was very much a tomboy at heart, and I preferred being with the boys, you know, because I could pick up on their body language much easier for some reason. But I knew for a fact that I was good at performing, and I started going into theatre schools. I started acting and trying my hardest to, I don't know, make sense of what my Asperger's was. And I was only told when I was about 15 years old, because the psychiatrist told my mum and my dad that when she hits puberty, it's going to get worse. And it did. Oh man, it did. It did. Nothing made sense, and imagine that 10 times, you know. But in a way, I used acting and performing, as I said, like to help me speak, but then I had it to help me get to know people, to pick up on body language, tones of voices. If I couldn't understand what was going on, I would just fixate on their mouths, I would look at their eyes, try my hardest to look at their eyes, because of course I would either look down or look up above their head. And I definitely looked at one movie that I particularly loved, was Doris Day in the film Calamity Jane. If you haven't seen it, please watch it. It's just, I do look at it as a good example of being autistic, actually. She wasn't autistic, but it showed some traits, some similar symptoms. She was a woman who was a cowgirl in the Western life. She was very tomboy, and she wasn't ladylike at all. And she preferred getting along with the men, and she couldn't socialise with women. She couldn't socialise, and I guess how they put it, a normal way. And at the same time, she would express herself through singing and dancing, and I just watched that and I just went, wow, that is something I really want to do, and maybe get paid for it, I don't know, as a career someday. So I put all of my strengths into these theatre schools. A lot of times people would look down at me, and because I worked so hard, and at the same time I wouldn't socialise with people, they immediately thought I was being selfish. They thought I was being just unfriendly, but I just didn't understand, didn't know what to do. But then, I don't know, it just, I thought that I've got to utilise this skill. Since maybe I can look at autism as an entity, I guess, it's taken something away from me. It's taken socialisation and processing away from me. Not in like a bad sense, but it just makes it harder. But in a way, it gives me something back in exchange. It allows me to take in a whole script in my head. You know, I can remember quite a lot of songs, and I can muscle memory with a routine, a ballet routine or a tap routine. I can pick it up. And that, to me, I thought was, oh, I can actually make it in life. And also that I'm not alone, other people go through it. And I believe that everybody goes through it in their own different way. You can generalize autism, but everybody has it in a specific kind of way, I think. Everyone's unique when they have autism. And also I think it helps, it does help to actually focus on tones of voice. You can try with eye contact, body language, because then you're watching the other person and they're looking back at you, and it's like a game. You're trying to figure out what's going on between when you're in a conversation. Because I remember a time when I was doing a play actually, we were getting all ready, dressed up, and putting makeup on, and this was the first time I started putting on makeup, and I was about 13, 14, putting on makeup properly, and I didn't really understand it at all. And as mothers do, my mum would say to me, "Oh, you're beautiful, you don't need makeup," but I took that sentence literally, not in a selfish way, thinking I'm beautiful, but I literally took it as that sentence. And when a young girl said to me, "Oh, why aren't you putting any makeup on?" And I just, responded with, "Well, my mum says I don't need makeup." Oh boy. And then she responded with, "Oh, you, how dare you," and having a go, and they called me names, and then she told the whole school, and the school, like all these kids, it was a very small school, so it was very easy to target me. But I was just so shocked, and I went back to my mum and I said, what was wrong with saying that? And my mother said, "Well, you can't say that, that's personal between me and you. Every mum can say that, but that will just make you look selfish." And then I just still didn't get it. I was like, how does that make me selfish? And it took me a long time, and most of the time I didn't have friends that would help me out. I would just have to figure it out on my own. And my mum and dad and my sister would have to work 10 times harder than other parents to watch where I went and kind of give me a sentence or a monologue before I go out, like going, "Okay, remember what you got to do when you go out. Don't say this, say that instead." And I'm like, "Got it, I got it, yeah. No wait, sorry, repeat it again." It just keeps going out of my head. But soon, when we moved down to Brighton, which was the best decision I think I ever did, I actually started to learn, because in Brighton everyone was very accepting, and I started to meet people who were not very judgmental at all. And in fact, I met a girl in an audition once, and I was sitting on my own, and then she walked over to me and she goes, "Why are you sitting on your own?" And I just go, "Well, so I don't offend anybody." That's literally what I said. "So I don't offend anyone." She goes, "Why?" "Well, apparently I'm Aspergic." And she goes, "There's nothing wrong with being Aspergic." And I was like, "Really? Oh, well, I can be myself. Fine." And then soon, after doing a few plays and learning different techniques and acting, and at times I do refer to other people who have autism, like take an acting class, maybe actually learn a few techniques of body language, tones of voice, eye contact. It really does help. And I remember I was auditioning to go to university for a bachelor's degree in European Theatre Arts. And this was Rosebriford College, and it was one of the top theatres in the country in England, well, it still is. And it was about 2,000 applicants a year, or 200,000, pretty big number. And, and there was only 24 spaces. Oh boy. Yeah. But I didn't care. I remember taking a huge folder with me. It was about this thick, and it was full of all of the things that I learned, what I did, dancing and practitioners, playwrights. And I was thinking, oh, I'm going to sit there, tell them everything I know, because I know what I'm talking about. But I did a monologue from Shakespeare, Twelfth Night, very generic. But at the end of it, the teacher who was auditioning me, who soon became my lecturer, who became my close friend, he said to me, "Right, okay, now I want you to sing the actual monologue." And I never thought of having to sing an actual monologue from Shakespeare before, and I was thinking, oh, well, what am I going to do with this? But I just remembered everything that I learned from when I was quite young. I even took up gymnastics, took up martial arts, just everything that I could think of to help me understand people and understand language. And I put it all into it, just put everything I had. I did a flip in the air, I tap danced, laughing, and then I was thinking, yeah, he's laughing, it's good, he's laughing, just keep going, you know, don't stop. And at the end, he asked me a really interesting question. I mean, I had a big application, and he just took one thing out of it, and he goes, I noticed that you're Aspergic. Completely, like in autism, and I'm like, yeah, and a few other things, like possibly dyscalculia and other things. But then he goes, oh, but don't get sad about it. It's interesting. And you're being a performer, because many performers, you know, comedians and playwrights, they come from possibly dyslexia and autism. And he goes, what is it about you being Aspergic makes who you are? Like, what is it about it? And I mean, I pretty much said that it is a burden. I have to deal with it for the rest of my life, but not in a horrible sense. It's something that I have to be careful of, because again, of accidentally offending people, which I never intend. And then trying to work as hard to understand what's going on in the world around me, the senses, and, you know, especially with actually really close friends. You know, I've gained a lot of friends, and then I've lost a lot of friends because they just can't keep up with me. But then also I said, yes, it's taken it away from me, but I've gained something really unique, I believe. It's the only thing that I'm really good at. I can perform, sing, and I love how it entertains everybody. I love singing something and it can move somebody. I love acting a monologue and it can actually make someone cry. I remember making someone cry, and I went up to them, gave them a hug, and I went, thank you. And they're just like, okay, like that. And I even had someone get really angry by it, and I was like, oh, this is good, you know? He's not getting angry at me personally, but he's getting angry at the character that I created one time. And I just pretty much said that, yeah, this is something that makes me who I am, and you should never ever look down on yourself for it. You have something to gain with autism. Yes, you may find a lot of things difficult, and everything around you is so overwhelming, but at the same time you have something special about yourself. Whatever that may be, it might be, yeah, maths, science, creativity, art. We all have something that we want to show, and we do it in such a weird, unique way that everyone gets really fascinated by it. And I love that. Like, for instance, I mean, I took a turn on, basically I had a show, it was my end of year show, it was a dissertation, and it was actually to do with physicalization in comedy, and I pretty much used the works of Buster Keaton. I loved Buster Keaton when I was a kid, because he didn't talk, he just he barely even used his face, because facial expressions were hard as well, but he just used his physicality to make a story. And I did that myself in a female way. And I got a first on it. I got a big high grade on it, and it made me very happy. And coming back to the actual advertisement that I did, not only did we did that commercial, but I actually did a lot of interviews, and I went out and spoke to the public in the station and kind of asked them, what would you do in that situation if you saw someone struggling on a train and you didn't know what was wrong with them? And also, does this help you understand Asperger's a little bit more? So I'd like to show that one for you now, a little clip. Get it in.
I'm Saskia Lupin. I'm 21, I live in Brighton, I'm a performing artist, and I'm autistic. I'm here at Brighton Station to just promote the National Autistic Society's awareness film called Divergent. I'm just going to be going around, just showing the video to people, and just seeing if they understand how unexpected changes for autistic people can make things a little bit more difficult. Let's go.
Made it really clear to me that there are so many things that can just disorientate you and throw you off completely. And I wouldn't realise, I would not think that that's the kind of effect it would have on somebody. So it's really kind of enlightening.
If someone is using what helps them, not make them feel awkward about it, so not steering, and perhaps if you're able to be sensitive around
If I was sort of in a crowded train like she was, perhaps, you know, just the little things like giving us a reassuring smile, or stepping back sometimes equally as well.
So I would just maybe educate myself a little bit now. People not to be sending disapproving looks, and just generally to be being aware and being not too embarrassed to actually extend a sort of helping hand, or even just to say, "Oh, you're all right." Yeah, it seems like wow. Yeah, it's a really interesting little movie there.
Thank you.
People often don't realise if they look at you from the outside, they wouldn't know.
Yeah, that whole sense of judging what someone looks like, thinking, oh, they're fine, when you have no idea what's going on inside their head, which is something that everybody else likes to talk about.
I agree.
Yeah, so you can tell already I'm a little bit weird. And also I'm blonde there and I'm a brunette now, so I'm a bit of a confusing thing, but I am Saskia, so don't worry about that. But yeah, that was a very helpful thing to do and speak to all those people. And one of the young ladies that I spoke to, she wasn't autistic, but she had social anxiety disorder, and she felt very kind of astonished by it. She was very much like, oh, well, I didn't expect that, but in a way it kind of helps me. Like, even though I have this social anxiety, I felt like I wanted to help that person. Which, I don't know, I guess it's different for everybody. But at the end of the day, I mean, I think with my, I guess, personal autism, Asperger's, for a long time, it took a long time for me to get to this point, not being able to talk and then being able to, but then not being able to understand. It was a very hard challenge, and I don't think I'd be here without my mum, my dad, or my sister, because they spent every moment that they could to help me. There's been really hard moments, because it can be an exhausting thing, but the best thing about it, I think, to help is to be patient, and also to be you do have to be kind of hard. You have to put a little bit of pressure, because you can't, the word is in like mollycoddle, you can't soften things, you can't keep people inside their homes all the time. If you feel your child is old enough to go to the shop one day, go with them and just try. I mean, I remember going to the shop for the first time and shaking in my hands and not looking at the lady and just going, if I just throw the money at her, she'll go away, you know. And just even getting on a bus was difficult. It took a long time to even get on a train on my own, and still it can be a bit challenging, but then you just have to remember to, you know, be calm in yourself, remember the things you are good at, and to know that you're not alone in it, everybody else is the same. And I hope to actually perform more in my life, doing either that's TV, you know, dance, musicals, even stunt work. I love stunt work as well. I met a couple of stunt men when I was younger, which helped me with language. And I hope to do films and things in order to inspire others, because that needs to be put out there more, especially, I guess, in a female kind of way. I see a lot of male, you know, like yesterday we saw about the films, you know, Rain Man and everything, that I think there's still not enough women doing that, and I hope to be one of those women to do it myself. Yeah, I think obviously right now it's really hard for me to stand up here today, but I'm doing it, looking at all of you, and you know, I'm not going to fall or anything, I'm not going to freak out, but to know that it's helping somebody else, you know, whether you're a parent with autism or if someone else has autism or your child or a friend, you can go, well, if she can do it, then I can go up and do that, you know. You should never feel bad about yourself doing it. And yeah, you are going to fail a lot of the time, but failure helps. Like my lecturer would tell me that all the time. Failure is a good thing in order for you to learn more about yourself and others. If you just learn everything and you were good at everything, you're going to fail very badly in life in the future. So you don't want that to happen to you. I don't know how much longer I have. Oh, got 5 minutes. Right, 5 minutes. So in all, difficulty in grasping abstract concepts such as like when you're in a conversation with one person, it's easier, you can focus on their face, but whereas if there's a second person, it gets a little bit harder. And then when there's 3 or 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 100 people around you, you feel like you want to shut down. But, you do have to limit yourself. Don't feel like you have to make friends with everybody. Don't feel like you have to grasp the attention of every single person around you, because it's not important. If anything, you're going to exhaust yourself and you're going to get sick. And for a time I was full of anxiety, and still a little bit now, and quite severe depression, but I'm overcoming that because I was too busy taking in all of the information, thinking it was a good thing, when actually it's really bad. And as we're talking about it, we can't handle too much information. Our senses just can't handle it. You want to take it bit by bit, because otherwise you're just going to crash and burn, and you really don't want that in life. And it's not about relying on others. You can rely, but I felt it was handy with acting. I think it's really important. I think with acting, I think everybody should just have a go at it. If you're really not even trying to speak to people, just try and do like a little technique of method acting or something like that. And it really did help me, because otherwise I would be not standing here today, really, or but I'm very happy to be here today, and I'm really privileged that this is being looked at in this way, and I hope other people can feel more inspired about it. Thank you very much.